her original idea was to cut up everything into as small of manageable pieces as possible. I wish that I didn't have to do it, but it was done. I didn't stop her.
During a morning walk, a woman's dog happens upon the horrifying skeletal remains of what used to be a human. Unsure of what to do, she calls 911 to report her finding.
Mercer County Sheriff's Office.
Yes, I may be just totally off my rocker, but I was just out walking my dog, and I came across some bones that look to me to be human. Maybe they're not, but I was wondering if I could send those pictures to you or email them to you.
The police make a shocking discovery. The skeletal remains belong to a young man who disappeared years ago. This case becomes one of the most intricate and bizarre case investigators have ever encountered. A tangled web of relationships that ended tragically. After the report from the woman who found the decapitated skeletal remain, DNA finally reveals his identity as Ryan Zimmerman 4 years later. Further investigations reveal that before he went missing, he lived with a couple of roommates. One of them went by the name of Sarah. The others were Naira Whitaker, a trans woman, and Corey, who was Sarah's husband. Eventually, Sarah is arrested and brought in for questioning. After being led in with cuffs, she is shown to her seat as the interviewer gets ready to begin. The detective reads her Miranda rights. Afterward, she is asked to give an account of things leading up to that moment. She begins a story of her life with her husband Corey and a friend who she later met by the name of Naira on a dating site.
And Corey, my husband at the time, wasn't going to be involved. He knew about it, but he said that he wouldn't try to insert himself in the relationship.
Eventually, she gets into a relationship with Naira, and although her husband is aware of this, he has no problem with this until he discovers that Naira belongs to the rainbow-themed community and was transgender. At this point, and for some unconventional reasons, he decided to become part of their relationship. In his view, a perfect relationship needed a man, a woman, and a trans person. Sarah was against this, and so her husband began to speak with Ryan online for a while. Afterward, he told her that he wanted Ryan to move in with them. Sarah says she didn't like the idea of Ryan moving in, but Corey was insistent. From all indications, what they had going on was an open relationship without restraint, a reflection of what can happen when ideologies are allowed to run wild without any form of moderation. It turns out that Ryan was likely interested in men, and so he eventually moves in with the couple. Sarah gave her conditions for allowing Ryan to stay with them. These included that he paid his share of the rent, got his own groceries, and eventually got a job after a few months of staying with him. When Ryan eventually shows up, Sarah says she didn't like his personality, and he was a pessimistic, self-hating person. He had zero confidence and didn't seem to think of anything good about himself. Eventually, Naira also moves into the house, and so all four of them begin a complex, uncomfortable, but manageable relationship. Sarah continues by saying Ryan had a weird habit of eavesdropping on people whenever any one of them was having a conversation, and this creeped them out. She avoided him, and they never had any conversations except when necessary. One day, Corey tells Sarah that he would be meeting up with a woman at a hotel and that he was done with Ryan. He had also come to the conclusion that the younger man didn't want to take a step toward improving his life. He had set up a number of interviews for him, but he refused to attend, stating that there was no way he could get the job. Some days after he left on his trip, Ryan asked to speak with Sarah, but she really didn't want to, as she just wanted him gone. However, he insisted on speaking with her, and so she went into his room to hear him out. She says that Ryan began to plead with her to give him a second chance, as he was now ready to turn a new leaf. Sarah, however, is not ready to entertain his excuses, and so she insists that he leaves, just like Corey wanted him to. After this, she told Naira about his pleas to stay, and Naira said that it would be a good idea to end his life. It should be noted that Sarah had stated that Naira had a weird way of thinking about hurting people. During some of their outings, she had expressed her desire to end a random person's life or drive a cyclist off the road. Of course, she never acted out on these evil thoughts, so Sarah says she never thought anything about them. On this day, however, after telling Naira about Ryan's pleas to remain, Naira spoke about Ryan's end and began to put some items together. She got trash bags, some bleach, and vinegar. At this point, Sarah says she realizes that her friend was serious about this and tried to stop her from carrying out this dastardly act. Naira insists on doing it, even without her help.
I tried to talk her out of it, calmly at first, and then I started getting a little hysterical. And she told me that if I didn't help, that she was going to do it anyway.
She says that it just might be messier without Sarah's help.
And that it was going to be a lot messier and a lot harder to get everything done by herself.
At this point, she says she was forced to go ahead with Naira's plan.
She said that she would just give me a small role to play, but she would do most of the heavy work.
In her defense, she states that Naira was the only person who really cared about her, and although she knew that she had manipulative tendencies, she was blinded by how much Naira stood by her in loyalty through the difficult times she had with Corey.
She was the only person who had been there for me through everything that Corey had put me through.
Eventually, they wait for Ryan to go upstairs, and Sarah jumps him from behind, trapping him in a headlock.
So when Ryan came out, I jumped on him from behind.
Naira also places a rag dipped in a mix of vinegar and bleach over his face, choking him in the process.
Naira came in and straddled him and then pressed the rag over his face.
Eventually, the effect of this chemical mix takes a toll on him as he ends up lifeless. Naira soon takes him into a bathtub and, in a manner reminiscent of a demonized person, hacks the lifeless body to several parts and puts them into refuse bags. Sarah, at this point, claims she was unable to help her friend with the evil cutting, as she couldn't bring herself to look at the person that was once their roommate moments ago.
I didn't want to see his face. I couldn't bring myself to look at him.
Sarah had the opportunity to salvage the situation, but her infatuation with a psychopath blinded her from taking the necessary actions. She admits to hearing Naira make statements about hurting people, but never took any action against this. Instead, she becomes an accomplice in the demise of Ryan. With the day breaking and the time now 4 or 5 a.m., the duo decide to dispose of Ryan's body in his car.
4 or 5 in the morning, I knew that it was starting to get light out. She came back to help, took the bin and put it in the back of Ryan's car.
Naira had already made plans to get Greyhound tickets after driving off to a neighboring state in Ryan's car with his remains and disposing of them in dumpsters. They soon drive off with his car and after a while stop for some gas. The car refuses to start after filling the gas tank, and so they're forced to abandon it and use Sarah's car instead for their nefarious act.
Stopped for gas after maybe half an hour to an hour, and then that's when the car wouldn't start again.
They drive all the way to Illinois and drop off the bags containing Ryan's remains in dumpsters along the way before heading back to Columbus, where they all lived. Sarah recalls dozing off at the wheel as none of them had slept in about 36 hours. When they got back, they found Corey was back home and was upset with Sarah for turning off her phone.
He didn't suspect anything, but he was angry that I had turned off my phone.
Too tired to argue, she and Naira fell asleep in the living room.
I did not want to talk to him, I just wanted to sleep. So we both, Naira and I both went back to the living room and fell asleep.
Naira, by the next day, had cleaned out the house. Corey never suspected anything and eventually began to see another woman until he moved out with her.
He started dating another woman until he moved in with her sometime in November.
Soon, he and Sarah divorced, and she began to plan a life together with Naira, the same person who she saw mercilessly take Ryan's life.
Corey and I had an uncontested divorce, and then Naira and I married at the end of January.
The two slowly settled back into their lives after this incident. constantly checking the television for news on their crime.
For a long time, we would check the news constantly.
Eventually, the news about the remains found by the woman walking her dog comes up, but nothing more happens immediately.
As time went on and we didn't see any new news, we started planning for a future instead.
Naira comes up with the idea of a pact where they must take their lives if the cops ever come looking for them.
We made a suicide pact that should something go wrong or we get discovered, that she was going to shoot me first and then kill herself.
She dreads the idea of going to jail and would rather end her life than go to jail.
She said she would rather die than spend her life in prison.
This case is quite complicated. This is because Naira and Sarah got together after their crime and Corey's divorce and subsequent remarriage. After waiting for a while, the two criminals forget about things until the DNA discovery led to Sarah's arrest.
As time passed and nothing new happened, I started to feel better, that maybe we'd be able to live a life together.
Upon hearing that Sarah had been arrested, Naira took her own life when a policeman showed up at her door.
When I said goodbye to her, I could see it in her face.
Her demise complicates things in no small way because Sarah can now pin every single detail of the crime on Naira, and there will be no way to find out since she is no longer alive. The cops ask if Naira already had everything set in preparation to end Ryan's life. From Sarah's story, Naira had gotten the trash bags, a handsaw, and bleach. They want to know if Naira bought them. Sarah says that all the items were available at home. The bleach was part of their cleaning items in the house.
We got everything in the apartment. Trash bags and bleach and vinegar were in the kitchen as cleaning supplies.
Sarah speaks in a way that completely removes her from any vicious act in the crime against Ryan. For instance, she said Naira carried out the research on how the chemicals would work and that she pretty much masterminded everything.
Researching the chemical reaction, I'm not sure what else. I wasn't either paying attention or actually there when she was doing that research.
The cops, from their investigations, have discovered huge discoveries from Ryan's card before and after his demise. They ask Sarah what grocery purchases were like for them, and she tells them they all went shopping together and made their separate purchases. The cops, by this line of question, want to know if Sarah can also be charged with theft in addition to her other crimes. They ask why Corey grew tired of Ryan, and Sarah says it's possible he was disappointed in Ryan as he didn't meet his expectations.
He was physically male, very much so, and I don't think that's what Corey expected.
She says it's also possible that Ryan had a venereal disease, and this must have put Corey off. They ask if she remembers Ryan's laptop being wiped or contacting a friend of Ryan. But again, she says Naira must have wiped his laptop. In her statement, she says that Naira was really tech-savvy, and it wasn't out of place if she probably wiped Ryan's hard drive. In the end, the interrogation has lots of uncertain areas, and no one can ever know if Sarah spoke the truth or if she used the demise of Naira as an opportunity to put all the blame on her. At her hearing, Sarah pleaded guilty to taking the life of Ryan Zimmerman and was sentenced to 30 years in prison. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to see more stories on true crime, then be sure to subscribe to our channel. This way, you'll be notified every single time we upload new videos. Thanks for watching.